When officers stormed the quiet flat on Ronayne Walk, they expected a package drop. What they didn't expect was to find 4 kilograms of cocaine freshly delivered, still warm in a bag for life, sitting just feet from the man meant to distribute it. They weren't just intercepting a dealer. They had pierced the outer wall of something much bigger. At the center of it all, a man who rarely touched the product. He operated from encrypted phones, issuing commands to a network of drivers, couriers, and even lovers. He was fluent in silence. Trusted by those above and below. This is the case of Warren Allison, a man who built a silent empire of cocaine and cash, using encrypted phones, loyal couriers, and absolute secrecy. What began as quiet deals would soon become one of the Southwest's biggest drug operations ever uncovered. Welcome to Crimecast UK, where we uncover the real stories behind Britain's most calculated criminals. Today's case pulls back the curtain on a criminal enterprise that thrived in silence. An empire hidden in plain sight, run by 2 brothers who mastered the art of encrypted control. If you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because what's coming next is a story built on secrecy and shattered by surveillance. Swindon and Trowbridge are 2 Wiltshire towns with quiet reputations. Not known for major crime. But like many towns across the UK, behind the rows of council estates and corner shops, there were cracks. Cracks that could let something grow, unnoticed. Warren Allison grew up in Swindon. His brother, Kelroy, was based in Trowbridge. Different postcodes. Same outlook. They weren't flashy. They weren't loud. Locals described them as quiet, focused, and private. But Warren always had more than most. Newer cars. Branded clothes. A phone always ringing. And no one could quite say what he did. He didn't seem to have a steady job, but the money never stopped flowing. The brothers were close but selective. They kept their circle small. Trusted few. And for years, nothing looked suspicious enough to raise alarms. Every empire has a beginning. And for Warren Allison, it didn't start with violence. It started with silence. Long before encrypted phones became standard in the underworld, Warren was already using them. He didn't wait for the trend, he set it. Encrypted. Sky ECC, tools built for secrecy now in the hands of a man with a plan. He began small. Quiet deals. Low quantities. But as confidence grew, so did the shipments. He stopped thinking like a street dealer and started operating like a wholesaler. Soon, Kelroy was brought into the fold. His role wasn't public. He stayed behind the curtain, helping repackage bulk cocaine into smaller, manageable blocks for local distribution. Efficiency was key. Risk had to be minimal. They moved in shadows and built systems most crews only dreamed of. But no empire moves without wheels. Richard Cowell. A 57-year-old man with no street reputation, no flashing lights, just a steady hand behind the wheel. He drove a specially modified vehicle fitted with a built-in concealment system. It was subtle. Clean. Effective. Perfect for moving cash one way and cocaine the other. But Cowell wasn't exclusive. Under the handle South Kangaroo on encrypted, he'd quietly become a key logistics man, not just for the Allisons, but for other criminal groups across the Southwest. A courier with reach and secrets. The kind of man who knew too much but said nothing. His routes crisscrossed counties. His deliveries were timed to the second. And while Warren stayed in the background, issuing encrypted commands, Cowell kept the money flowing. Tens of thousands. Sometimes more. One informant would later tell investigators. He didn't carry a gun. He carried trust. But trust has limits. And the more people brought in, the harder it becomes to keep everything controlled. By 2017, the Allison brothers weren't just moving drugs. They were building a distribution model. Warren used the handle Legal Master. Richard Cowell, South Kangaroo. From the outside, it looked like nothing. But between 2017 and 2020, more than 70 kilograms of cocaine flowed through their network. Most of it is distributed across the Southwest. Street value, between £5.6 million and £7 million. And yet there were no flashy cars. No Instagram posts. Only whispers. And logistics. One of the group's most clever tools. Cowell's car. To most, it looked like any other. But inside, hidden beneath the panels, is a custom-built concealment system. Police later described it as professional grade. Not homemade. Purpose-built. It allowed him to carry high-value loads without setting off alarms. But operations of this scale need more than runners. They need structure. Enter Portia Densley. Warren's partner in life. And in finance. She wasn't just picking up cash. She was managing thousands in real time. Collecting payments. Transferring money. Handling courier handoffs. And above all, keeping the books clean. She didn't deal. She didn't drive. But without her, nothing moved. One investigator later called her critical to the flow of the entire operation. And what's more, she did it all without raising suspicion. Until much later. Their expansion was quiet. Their footprint, minimal. But the profits were growing. And so was the network. Yet the more people they pulled in, the harder it became to hide. Some contacts changed phones weekly. Others had multiple handles across networks. Legal Master wasn't just giving orders, he was negotiating prices, confirming drops, and even discussing new suppliers. By late 2019, this was no longer a drug ring. It was an enterprise, multi-layered, precise, and fully operational. Cocaine was moving in kilos, week after week. Cash flowed in by the tens of thousands. And every part of the system had a name behind it. Richard Cowell, the courier. He was the wheels of the empire. Trusted. Silent. Armed with a specially modified vehicle that moved drugs and cash across counties without a trace. Portia Densley, the financial gatekeeper. She wasn't just counting money. She was coordinating pickups, arranging transfers, and laundering the proceeds under Warren's direct instruction. Then there was the tech. The encrypted backbone of the empire. EncroChat devices costing thousands were handed out to key players like security passes. Each came with a handle, and each handle had a purpose. Warren Allison, known in encrypted circles as Legal Master, operated like a CEO. He wasn't in the street. He was behind the screen strategizing, negotiating, and managing supply chains. But supply is only half the story. The real engine was the source. And for the Allisons, that came from high up. Albanian traffickers, including Ledian Hoxha and Jeter Pisha, were linked to major shipments. Warren didn't just receive product. He brokered deals, handled quality control, and took cuts from cousin Anthony Burke, who managed local distribution in places like Ronaine Walk, Bristol. EncroChat made them feel invisible. Untraceable. But what they didn't know, was that French law enforcement had quietly breached the system. When French and Dutch authorities cracked EncroChat in early 2020, it sent shockwaves across Europe's underworld. For months, criminals had been unknowingly feeding their operations straight into the hands of police. Warren Allison's network was no exception. But while others panicked, Warren adapted. The group switched platforms, migrating to Sky ECC, another encrypted messaging system. What they didn't know, was that police were already listening there, too. And that's when the cracks began to widen. On November 3, 2020, a message was sent. A delivery was scheduled. 4 kilograms of high-purity cocaine. Destination, Ronaine Walk, Bristol. Recipient, Anthony Burke, Warren's cousin. Police had been watching the house for days. When the courier knocked and dropped the bag, they moved within minutes. Inside. Cocaine. Still warm. Still sealed. Street value, nearly £500,000. But what made the bust significant wasn't the drugs. It was what came with them. Devices. Sky ECC phones. Messages sent in code, recovered in plain English. They exposed something deeper. A direct connection between Warren Allison's crew and a powerful Albanian trafficking network. At the center was Enid Aliko. An overlooked figure in the early investigation. But quietly, he had become indispensable. He supplied the encrypted phones. He coordinated pickups. And most critically, he acted as a middleman between two criminal worlds. the British distributors, and the Albanian wholesalers. The names soon surfaced. Ledian Hoxha and Jeter Pisha. Both men had deep ties to Balkan supply lines and were known to law enforcement. But their mistake? They trusted the wrong network. Surveillance logs placed Aliko at key meetings. Chat logs showed him discussing prices, coordinating supply drops, and confirming delivery handoffs. He even gave one of the Sky ECC devices used by the Allisons to continue trading under new aliases. Meanwhile, paranoia spread within the group. Warren's tight circle began to fracture. Chats grew more cryptic. Drop points changed constantly. Some members stopped responding altogether. Investigators noticed something else. Not all mistakes were technological. Some were human. Cowell, the trusted driver, had grown complacent. A change in route here, a missed signal there. Surveillance footage began to mount. ANPR cameras traced his journeys, matching them to chat timestamps. One message read, "Drop done. Back en route." Seconds later, CCTV showed Cowell's van exiting the handoff location. Another twist. Encrypted texts revealed growing mistrust between Warren and a rival crew. Police believe one of those rivals may have tipped authorities to a key stash house in Wiltshire, leading to a quiet raid that recovered not drugs, but burner phones, SIM cards, and a list of coded aliases. The betrayal? It may have come from within. One chat referenced leaks at the top. Another warned Warren to shut shop and vanish for a while. But it was too late. From that moment after the Burke delivery, the takedown became a matter of time. Surveillance increased. Devices were cloned. And the illusion of invisibility crumbled, one encrypted message at a time. By early 2021, the walls were closing in. Years of encrypted messages thought to be untouchable were now evidence in a growing case file. Behind closed doors, a joint operation between Wiltshire Police and the National Crime Agency was underway. The mission: dismantle the Allison network, piece by piece. The data was overwhelming. Over 10,000 decrypted EncroChat and Sky ECC messages. Vehicle tracking logs. Financial records. Surveillance photos. And in many cases real-time location pings. Every courier run, every handoff, every late-night cash pickup mapped and timestamped. One file even showed a time-stamped overlay. Warren's message confirming a drop, Cowell's van on CCTV, and a bank transfer logged minutes later. Then came the strike. In coordinated dawn raids, warrants were executed across Swindon, Trowbridge, and Bristol. Doors were rammed. Phones were seized before they could be wiped. Inside Warren's property: cash counters, burner phones, vacuum sealers, and ledgers carefully coded, but damning. Portia Densley, Warren's partner and finance controller, was found with over £30,000 in cash hidden in her wardrobe. Cowell's modified vehicle was impounded. Its hidden compartments previously undetectable were now stripped and photographed as evidence. But the most pivotal moment came in court. Inside the courtroom, a hush settled when prosecutors named Warren Allison as legal master, the EncroChat handle coordinating it all. For months, the true identity behind that handle had been uncertain. Now, it was public. The revelation hit like a shockwave. Kelroy, his brother, shifted uncomfortably in the dock. Densley kept her eyes down. Richard Cowell avoided looking at Warren altogether. Tension simmered beneath the surface. Court observers noted subtle gestures, side glances, clenched jaws, and whispered exchanges. The inner circle was beginning to fracture. Some defendants cracked under pressure. They pleaded guilty. Others gambled, choosing to fight the charges. But the evidence was airtight. One twist came during Cowell's testimony. In an attempt to distance himself from the core operation, he claimed he didn't know what he was transporting. But the decrypted chats told another story. Messages where he negotiated cash splits, described traffic stops, and even joked about snow delivery in July. Another cliffhanger unfolded with Enid Aliko. He initially denied any connection to drug trafficking, framing himself as a tech consultant. But forensic analysis of his Sky ECC device revealed direct correspondence with known traffickers. He had handled more than just phones, he had coordinated deals worth tens of thousands. And then there was the unindicted co-conspirator referenced in chat logs but never named in open court. A mysterious figure tied to both the Allison brothers and the Albanian suppliers. Some believe they fled the country during the investigation. Others say they cut a deal before trial. Their identity remains sealed under court order, fueling rumors of a wider network still in play. By the time sentencing hearings began, the courtroom was no longer just a legal battleground, it was a theater of crumbling alliances. Warren remained stoic, even defiant at times. But the empire he built with encrypted phones, loyalty, and cash had finally collapsed. The fall wasn't loud. It was clinical. Unstoppable. One encrypted message at a time. Warren Allison, known to his associates as Legal Master, the mastermind behind the entire operation. He was the strategist, the silent broker, the man whose fingers never touched a single kilo but who controlled the flow of millions. He was handed 23 years in prison. Kelroy Allison, the younger brother and the trusted lieutenant. He ran the redistribution side, coordinating deliveries, managing stash locations, and staying low profile to avoid attention. Prosecutors described him as integral but disciplined. He received 16.5 years. Richard Cowell, the veteran courier with a specially modified car and nerves of steel. Known on EncroChat as South Kangaroo, he worked across gangs, making him both an asset and a liability. His dual loyalties, prosecutors argued, kept the entire operation moving like clockwork. He was sentenced to 9 years. Portia Densley, Warren's partner in more ways than one. Described in court as the financial architect, she moved bulk cash, facilitated transfers, and managed risk. It was her control of the money that allowed the empire to function. She was sentenced to 8 years. Anthony Burke, Warren's cousin and the one caught with 4 kilos of cocaine still warm in a bag for life. His arrest triggered a domino effect. He claimed he didn't know the scale of the business. The court disagreed. He was handed 8 years behind bars. Ledian Hodja, linked to the Albanian trafficking chain that supplied the Allisons. He operated behind layers of intermediaries, but decrypted messages placed him in the center of negotiations. He was sentenced to 7 years and 4 months. Jeter Pisha, another cog in the Albanian supply machine. He helped source, route, and insulate shipments. The judge noted his active role in sustaining cross-border traffic. He received 6 years and 8 months. And finally Enid Aliko. A digital ghost turned fixer. It was he who sourced Sky ECC devices for the group after EncroChat's collapse. He bridged Warren's circle with Balkan suppliers and helped delay the inevitable, but only for a while. He was given 4 years. The courtroom was silent as the final verdicts were read. Some stared ahead. Others cried. But Warren? He looked down. No emotion. No reaction. Just calculation, until the end. For Wiltshire police, it was a landmark moment, one of the biggest crackdowns in regional drug trafficking history. In Swindon and Trowbridge, crime slowed if only for a time. But crime analysts remain wary. Because encrypted networks haven't disappeared. They've multiplied. New apps, new players, same old playbook. Warren Allison didn't deal drugs on street corners. He dealt in shadows across encrypted lines, through trusted hands, under layers of silence. No guns, no threats, no flashy violence. Just structure. Just discipline. Just control. He built a quiet empire run by code, by cash, and by silence. But one system cracked. One phone decrypted. And the empire? It crumbled. The couriers folded. The cash was seized. And Warren, the man who once said nothing, was named in open court as the mastermind. 23 years behind bars. But was it enough? Was this justice for a £7 million conspiracy that ran under our noses for almost 5 years? Or was Warren just a cog in something far bigger? A network that still operates in the background, out of reach, out of sight, and still encrypted. Thanks for watching Crimecast UK. If this case shocked you, it won't be the last. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell, because some of the darkest crimes happen closer to home than you think.